while it's true that we spend a ton of money on healthcare, most of that money doesn't go to healthcare. Most of that money goes to insurance companies and bureaucrats that run the healthcare system. Healthcare providers, doctors, nurses, dentists, podiatrists, medical assistants, all that stuff, about 8 cents of every healthcare dollar is actually going to the people who are providing the healthcare. So here's the game. We've made it essentially impossible to get medical care without insurance. Insurance companies are the ones that set the insurance price, right? They say this is how much you have to pay us to insure your health care. However, the insurance companies also decide what they're going to pay for and what they're not going to pay for. And they get to override your doctor as to what your doctor thinks you should get. The insurance company has power over them. So the insurance companies oftentimes own the hospitals and own the clinics that the hospitals own. And so as a doctor, if I say, you come to see me as a patient and you say, hey, I have this problem. And I go, well, it could be one of these 3 things. So I'd like to run these 2 tests and see if it's which one of these 3 things it is. And then once we figure out which one of those 3 things are, there's 2 or 3 options that we could do treatment-wise, and we'll talk about what you prefer. That would be the ideal way to practice medicine. That's the way medicine used to be, just like not that long ago. When I was a kid in the 80s, that's the way medicine went. You went and saw your doctor, you paid him $200 or whatever. He did the test you wanted to do, he or she. You came back, you saw them. They said, here's what's going on with you. We could do this, we could do that. We could do this procedure. Here's the likelihood of it succeeding. We give you this pill. Here's the pros and cons of that. We could, whatever your options are. Well, now the insurance company tells the doctor, well, we're not paying for that test. Like standard of care, which is based on research that's done at academic institutions, which are controlled by big pharma and insurance companies, because big pharma and insurance work in cahoots. So insurance companies have representatives that negotiate with pharmaceutical companies on not what the cheapest medication they can get, not the best medication they can get, but what medication will bring them the most profit. Right. And so now the insurance company says, okay, well, that test is too expensive and we don't think you need that test. We just want you to do this and just diagnose them with that and try them on this medication. That's what we want you to do. Even the doctor's like, well, I've been doing this for 20 years. I've seen this and that. I know that's very unlikely. This is actually the most likely. And if we did this test, well, you don't get a vote. You don't get the vote as the doctor. The insurance company says, no, this is the test we'll pay for. If you get your patient that test, they're going to end up paying for that on their own. Or if you pay for it from your clinic, you're going to have to collect that money from that patient and get yourself paid back. They have something called prior authorization. So if I say, I want to do this procedure on this patient or I want to do this test on this patient, I have to ask the insurance company if I can do that first. And then the insurance company says yes or no. Well, if they say yes, that's called a prior authorization. They said, yeah, I can order this test or I can do this procedure. And then I do that. And then we submit the super bill. And then the insurance company comes back 50% of the time and denies that claim and says, no, we don't agree to that procedure being done. We need more information. And then you have to provide them more information. Well, it's the same information you've already provided them, but you just have to provide it on a different form. And if you don't jump through that hoop, then you aren't going to get paid. And even if you do jump through that hoop, you might have to jump through another hoop to get paid. So now a doctor needs like 3 people in their office at all times chasing down reimbursement for everything that they've done. And then once the insurance company lets you do the test and you get the diagnosis and say the patient needs a pharmaceutical, well, that insurance company has negotiated with pharmaceutical companies to say what medication they want to give for that disease, because that's what they're going to make the most profit off of. It doesn't matter if it's the best medication, as long as it's like, in the top 5 or something, it's the one we can get the best price on. It doesn't matter if it costs the patient more. It doesn't matter. That doesn't matter. As long as the insurance company makes more money off of it, that's the one they negotiate. They're publicly traded companies. So that by definition, their number one goal is to give their investors back money, right? Their investors get a return on their investment. That's what legally, every public company has to do that. You can sue an insurance company. If you've invested in that insurance company, they're publicly traded, you have stock in their company, and they're doing things that benefit the patients more than it benefits you, you could sue the company for that. So that's the problem with healthcare. That's why everything's so expensive. Let's say you go see your doctor, and your doctor says, I'm going to send you to the lab to get these labs drawn. And you go to the lab, and the lab company, not the doctor's office, right? It's not legal for doctors to make money off of pharmaceuticals. That's one thing that people don't seem to get. Like, I can't make money off of something I prescribe. That's illegal. I can't make money off of tests that I order. That's illegal, right? I'm not allowed to do that. I have to send you to get labs done because I think that's what I need to diagnose you. I have to prescribe you a medication because I believe that's the best thing to help you. There can't be a financial incentive on it, or it doesn't matter how good of a person I am. That's going to affect my decision making, right? It's like, well, I know every time, if all my patients do this, I make an extra $50,000 a year. Like, I'll do that. Even, it's pretty good. It's like, that's not the way it goes. So the pharmaceutical industry is making money off the pharmaceuticals, not the doctors. The insurance companies are making money off of the pharmaceuticals. Even the hospital is making money off of the pharmaceuticals. The doctors don't make any money off of that shit. So you can see a lot of times, like, you go to your doctor, he sends you to get labs done. You go, the lab company charges you $300. You submit your insurance card, they charge your insurance company. Your insurance company comes back and says, no, we're not paying for that. Or they say, okay, your insurance company paid for it. We charged your insurance company $1,500. They paid $800. You owe us $700, right? But you go and you tell them, I'm not paying for insurance with this. I don't have insurance. I want to pay a cash fee. And they go, okay, cash fee's $300. That happens all the time. I've seen videos where guys went to get their labs done or their tests done or whatever. They got a bill from their lab or the imaging center that said, this is $600. And he says, oh no, I have insurance. Like, you didn't get my insurance card. Here's my insurance company. And they go, okay, we'll file that to your insurance. Then they file it to the insurance company. The insurance company pays whatever percentage they want to pay. The insurance company then pays whatever percentage they're going to pay, and then the rest falls on the patient. They come back and say, okay, we filed that with your insurance company. Your insurance company paid this much, and now you owe us $900. And he's like, but I only owed you $600 before. Before my insurance was involved, it was $600. Now you've submitted it to my insurance company, it's $900. How's that? Like, well, we billed your insurance company $1,800 for it. It's like, well, why didn't you bill my insurance company $600 for it? Well, because if I billed your insurance company $600, they'd pay $200, because that's the way the game's played. So when you go see a doctor, the reason a doctor needs a biller, they need to go through something called ICD-10 codes. So there's these codes, these insurance codes that you have to put in there, and you say, well, I did this test because of this code. Like, his symptoms made me think it's these 5 codes, and then I did this because it's that code, and this, and then the insurance company goes, nah, we're not going to pay for this, that, or that. We'll pay for this. And so you have to bill like $5,000 to get your $200 or $300 or whatever. That's it's probably hyperbolic, but it's high. Like, it's really high. It's about your insurance biller is usually billing about 3 to 4 times what you expect to get back, and you're getting back what you've calculated you need for your business to work, right? Your hospital to work, or your private clinic to work. So that's another game of the insurance company, is they determine reimbursement. So now you have to charge them way more because they're only going to pay a certain thing. And that little algorithm, what they're going to pay, that's secret sauce. They're not going to tell you what that algorithm is, or you'd just be able to put one code in there and get paid back. So now you have to have billers that are constantly playing that game, and they're staying up kind of on, how does this algorithm work? What can I bill? What can I get reimbursed for? Knowing that you're only going to get a percentage of everything you bill for. And a lot of times they'll just flat out deny the claim, and then your insurance provider, or then your biller has to figure out how to resubmit that, what their complaint is. Like, well, there's a T here and it should have been a J, or whatever. We couldn't read this code, so we just denied it, or something like that, right? And so now you're paying like 3 people $60,000-$80,000 a year to get your money back from the insurance company. And the insurance company is dictating what they're going to pay for, and they can change that, and they do change that game from month to month. Why can't you go into the doctor's office and say, how much does a doctor's visit cost? I'll just pay you. right? How much does this test cost? I'll just pay you. Why can't you do that? Because if they're in the insurance company, they have no idea. They have no idea. You'll hear these people say they got an $80,000 bill for riding in an ambulance, right? Because an ambulance took them from a car wreck to the hospital. Like, it's $80,000. Well, no, that's what they billed the insurance company because they're hoping to get $5,000 back, right? And you just say, well, how much would it be for me? Well, they can't just admit to that game and say, it's only $5,000. Like, right? That exposes the whole lie, it exposes the whole system.